Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for watching this video. In this video, I'm going to explain about introduction to memory. So in this chapter, we are going to look into 5 subtopics. The first one, we are going to look at the introduction and the concept of memory under the subtopic of the nature of memory. Then we are going to delve into 3 important processes involved in our memory system, which are memory encoding, memory storage, and memory retrieval. And in the last part, we are going to look at one important aspect of memory, which is forgetting. The first subtopic, the nature of memory. So basically, what is memory? Memory is the retention of information or experience over time. So whatever we've learned, whatever we have experienced, if we are able to retain those information, if we are able to remember those memories, those history, those situation, people we meet, so basically those information and experience are being stored in our memory. So in order for us to be able to do all of these, memory involves 3 processes, which are, the first one is encoding. How do we put in information into our brain? Second one, the storage. How we keep this information, this history, this knowledge in our brain. And the third one, retrieval. How we are able to bring back those information into our conscious awareness. How we be able to explain back. How we are able to share back the memory with other people. So all of these involve memory. Memory not only about remembering, but memory involved before that. How we store information, which is encoding. How we get this information, retain, and able to retrieve it back. All of these involve memory system. So memory is basically an active system that receives information from the senses, organize and alters that information as it stores it away in our brain, and then we are able to retrieve the information from the storage. So basically, research information from this is what we have learned before when we have sensory senses. Okay, we have sensory organ. So when people explain to us about something, when we come into class, when we listen to explanations, all of those information are being received by our sensory organ, okay, sensory receptors. So how this information bring to our brain and process, and this information, we decide that we want to keep those information, and we put the information in our brain, and then when the times come, okay, examination, test, or we want to share our experience with others, so we want to retrieve it back. All of these are basically memory, okay, the system of memory that human beings are able to learn, able to remember experiences, information, knowledge that they have learned or encountered prior to that. Okay, like I mentioned, so memory involves 3 main processes. The first one is memory encoding. So in this subtopic, we are going to look at 4 main aspects that involve in encoding. Okay, prior to that, we are going to look at the introduction of encoding. What is encoding all about? And then we look at what processes involved when we want to encode, when we want to interpret information that we receive from our environment. Okay, we are going to discuss about attention, level of processing, elaborations, and mental imagery. So the first step in memory, what it is encoding. Encoding is the first step, the process by which information gets into memory storage. Okay, so how we sense the information in our environment, and we decide those information are important for us to remember. So it's involved encoding. So encoding is basically the sets of mental operations that people perform on sensory information to convert that information into a form that is usable in the brain storage system. Okay, so what we realize only information that we see and information that we retrieve back. But the process involved in the middle, we don't realize it. Okay, how we keep that in our brain, we don't realize it. Okay, so this the process of encoding when we sense information and we want to convert those informations into something that we store in our brains is involved four processes. The first one is attention. Second one is deep processing. Third one, elaborations. And the last one, we use mental imagery. Okay, attention. So what is attention? Attention here we refers to selective attention, whereby we will listen to a lot of things. Okay, we will see a lot of things. But what types of information that we decide is important, that we need to remember? Okay, so selective information refers to focusing on a specific aspect of experience while we ignore others. Okay, imagine yourself in a classroom. Imagine yourself in a classroom. So I am teaching you right now, and at the same time, you have your classmates. And it's happened to be your classmate want to share his or her recent incidents to you. Okay, they have not been seeing you for quite some time, for example. So they also talking. At the same time, your phone are vibrating. Okay, there are sensors that you sense. But even though these three sensory informations are pushing to select or to attract your attention, but you chose. Okay, you chose to pay attention to my lecture. So you ignore what your friends are saying, okay, beside you, and you ignore the vibrations from your phone. So even though you still still acknowledging your friends talking, okay, by knocking down your heads, or sometimes smiling to him or to her, but actually you are not paying attention. Okay, what happened? After the class, you won't even remember what your friends are telling you. Okay, but you are able to recall back what you've learned about memory right now. So it shows that during those time when a lot of informations are available, okay, the voice from your friends, the vibrations from your phone, and my voice, okay, my picture, okay, the situation in classroom, but you are able to pay attention, okay, to perform selective attention. Okay, so in selective attention, there are three types of attention: divided attention, sustained attention, and executive attention. So let's look at one by one the difference between these three types of attention. So divided attention basically refers to concentrating on more than one activity at the same time. Okay, so people usually attract or attribute divide attention into multitasking. So you concentrate on more than one activity at the same time. Examples. Take again. Example of you being in class. Okay, you being in class, you are listening to the lecture, and at the same time trying to take note. Okay, what happened usually? Okay, usually people don't have the same speed of writing or taking note while listening to the lecture. So you are basically try to pay attention, try to remember the new information that your lecture or your teachers are saying, but at the same time writing the previous points that he or she, your instructor, was saying before that. So you are paying attention to writing as well as to listening. Okay, on top of that, your friend are asking you what lunch, okay, what you want to eat during lunch, okay, how you're going to go back to your house after class. So you have so many things to focus on. So divided attention is basically concentrating on more than one activity at the same time. Second type of attention, sustained attention. Okay, the ability to maintain attention to a selected stimulus for a prolonged period of time. Okay, being in classroom, being in lecture, being in exam halls, usually requires us to have a sustained attention. Okay, requires us to pay or to maintain our attentions to a selected stimulus for a prolonged period of time. And the third one, executive attention, which requires us, the human being, to direct our attention to engage in a high-level cognitive functioning. Okay, directing attentions to engage in a higher level cognitive functioning, okay, such as plan action, allocate attentions to goals, detect errors and compensate for that errors, monitor progress on tasks, deal with novel or difficult circumstances. Usually, examples that I give for executive attention is imagining yourself involved in debate competition. Okay, competition. When you are debating, so it usually requires you to be or to execute executive attention. Why? First, you need to listen to the argument presented by your opponents, by the opposite debaters. So they will talk about, or they will argue on why their argument is better than you. Okay, you have to pay attention to that. At the same time, you have to figure out what are the counter arguments so that you can reply to the person. Okay, but usually beside these two activities, okay, brain activities that are happening during debate, you are also searching for new information that will support or will not support your argument, or will not support the arguments of your opponents. So it's involved executive attention. Even more, experienced debaters, they will plan their arguments so that their opponent will fall into trap. By what? Through what? By asking questions. Why? They are asking leading questions. So these leading questions, say for example, the opponent, your opposite debaters responding to the way that you want them to respond, basically they are falling into traps. So you are planning one, or not one step ahead, but 2 or 3 steps ahead. Okay, you are searching for information. You are building counter arguments as well at the same time. So it's involved executive attention. So remember, so when we want to put or to remember certain information, first of all, we have to pay attention. We have to do selective attention. And we have to remember there are 3 types of selective attentions, which are divided attention, sustained attention, and executive attention. Okay, so that is the first process involved in memory encoding. The second process is levels of processing. Okay, at which task, at which levels of processing, okay, cognitive processing, that requires us in order for us to remember certain information. Okay, so encoding can be influenced by levels of processing, how deep we process certain information. Okay, deeper processing produce better memory. So say for example, okay, take the same example. You come in class, okay, you are listening to lecture. At the same time, your friends are asking you about lunch, about your transportation, and etc. And then your phone are ringing. So you involve in selective attention. So you basically still trying to listen to your friends talking, but paying more attention to the lecture. So what happened? Okay, let's take all of this. Why? There are 3 levels of processing. The first one, shallow processing. Second one, intermediate processing. And third one, deep processing. Okay, deep processing. So shallow processing, basically we just look at the physical and perceptual features that involved in that information. Okay, we analyze physical features, the sound of it, the color of it, okay, the shape of it, the size of it, the physical features. That only involve shallow processing. Intermediate processing, we process the information, the stimulus, based on its level, okay, level, and we recognize the stimulus based on the levels. Okay, what are the concepts involved? Okay, even the deeper process after intermediate is deep processing, where semantic processing involves semantic, meaningful, symbolic characteristics are applied in order for us to pay attention to that situation. Okay, coming back. Okay, the situation when you come to class, you try to listen to the lecture and at the same time listens to your friends chit-chatting, talking to you, and try to avoid being disturbed or distracted by the vibration of your phone, right? For example. So here, vibration of your phone we can consider as only shallow processing. Okay, after some times, you can't even realize that actually your phones are ringing, someone are calling you. Even sometimes you forgot to return the call after the class. Why? Because you don't pay attention to that and it's only involve a lower levels of processing, which is shallow processing. Okay, but at the same time, you still are able to respond to your friend while talking to you in the class. Okay, even though you try to pay attention to the lecture, so you just saying them, it's okay, I don't have any preference today, so I will eat whatever you choose to eat. Or you just, okay, I agree to go and have lunch with you after class. Okay, so it's only involve recognitions, okay, levels, okay. We'll go by your car, for example, to lunch, or I will go with you after class to go back to my hostel, for example. So it's only involve intermediate levels of processing. But you are able to explain back to your friends, to your classmates on what are memory all about. Okay, the main three processes involved in memory. Why you're able to do this? Because when listening to the lecture, you use your deep levels of processing, which you use semantic, meaningful, symbolic characteristic so that you are able to pay attention and store this information deeper or longer in your memory system. Okay, those are the first two processes involved in encoding, attention and deep processing. And next is when we doing encoding, we try to select information that we want to store in our memory. We also involve in elaboration. Okay, so elaboration refers to the formation of a number of different connections around a stimulus at a given level of memory encoding. Okay, things like this. We as a human being, we have the capacity to learn and store, relearn, improve our memory. So while growing up, okay, we have gone through a lot of experience. We have gone through a lot of learning process, okay, formal learning process and informal learning process in at our house or during socialization with our friends. So there are a lot of information stored in our memory. So what happens if we listen or learn new informations? This new information will they come into our attention in our encoding. It will link to every information that are available in our brain. So it's basically it connects with stimulus that are available. Okay, for example, you have not seen your friend for quite some times. Okay, for 5 years, for 10 years. Okay, say for example, when you first meet the person after long time not seeing them, so you suddenly see a person next to her. Okay, her husband. Okay, her husband. So now the information that you have, your friend Aisha, a single person, a single teacher teaching English at secondary school, now already married, and her husband names Ahmad, for example. Ahmad is Malaysia is a Singaporean doctors. Okay, so those information is basically the new information about Ahmad. Okay, a male doctors, for example, is added in and linked to your friend. So it's involved elaboration. Okay, one of effective ways, according to cognitive psychologists, to improve our memory or trying to remember new things is to elaborate on information, especially we elaborate it and we try to connect the informations to our own self, which we call as self-reference. We relate new materials to our own experience. So basically, the informations that we'll get will have different form. Okay, physical form, only the physical nature, physical features of the information, the sounds, the color, the shape, the size, for example. Okay, the acoustic of it, the semantic, the meaning of it. Okay, all of these we can use for our elaboration, connecting the new informations that we want to encode to the available information that we already have. Okay, but according to psychologists, the most effective way is to use self-reference. Okay, memory improves when self-reference is used. In one of the studies, researchers asked participants to remember lists of words according to the word's physical features, okay, the shape of it, the color of it, the writing of it, the size of it, okay, or acoustic, the sound of it, semantic, the meaning of it, or self-reference characteristics. So what happened? Research found that when individuals generated self-reference for the new words that they've learned, they remembered them better as compared to if they focus on physical features, acoustic and semantic elaboration. Okay, so that is the third processes involved in encoding. Okay, the last process involved in coding is mental imagery. And mental imagery is one of the most powerful encoding tools. So what is mental imagery? Mental imagery is basically we use our imaginative ability. We visualize. Okay, we visualizing material that we want to remember in a way that creates a lasting portrait. Okay, we visualize material that we want to remember in ways that create a lasting portrait. We visualize, we imagine that about the information that we've learned. Images basically are remembered better than verbal levels. So we remember image pictures better than the sound of words. According to Alan Spavio, which proposes dual code theory. Okay, Alan Spavio proposed a dual code theory. So based on Alan Spavio's theory, memory for pictures is better than memory for words. Why? Because pictures are stored as both image codes and verbal codes. Okay, in other words, when we look at pictures, we look at photos, we store this information in our brain in two forms. Okay, the picture itself and the sound of the pictures. Okay, image codes and verbal codes. Okay, because we have to name them. Okay, we have to call them what? So that's why we store it in both codes, as compared to if we store it as sound or verbal codes, we only store it in one form. Okay, memory of verbal information can be boosted by linking it to imagery. That's why they ask us to use mental imagery in order for us to remember better or more effective way of remembering new information.